Yes.
Morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Mark said I'm Andrew Benny from the Institute for Economic Justice. I work on food systems there and climate justice. I'm just going to be very quick because we want to make sure there's enough time for the real content people and content discussions here today. But this event is hosted by the IEJ, the Institute for Economic Justice. We're a think tank, activist think tank that works on progressive economic policy, hence economic justice. And it's hosted together with the Union Against Hunger, which is a campaign organizing communities around the question of hunger and food insecurity in South Africa and challenging hunger, the statistics of hunger that we have in this country. And that's one of the main reasons that we are here today, is to talk about food prices. Because I think one of the main contradictions many of us might be familiar with is that South Africa is a rich country. We produce more than enough food to feed. We produce more food than we need to feed everyone in this country. Yet we have food insecurity rates at 27, 28% of households experience moderate or severe food insecurity. Up to 28% of children experience stunting, which has massive implications for their future potential and future development. And so we're here today to talk about food prices because one of the main ways, because we live in a market economy, we live in capitalism, one of the main ways that we all access food is food prices, right? And what's been happening with food prices in the last couple of years? Have they been going down? Is food affordable for all of us? So they've been rising pretty sharply, right? In March 2023, food inflation was 14%. So that's what we're here today to discuss, the reasons behind rising food prices in South Africa, but really importantly, what are some of the solutions? We have some people who work on this issue who will discuss it, but also key in this event is some audience engagement as well, so that we have a collective conversation. So welcome everyone again. Just to say a couple of housekeeping things. So one is you'll see we have Grant doing graphic harvesting. Hi Grant. So instead of minutes or whatever, he'll be recording the conversation through art, essentially. There'll also be a chance to engage in the second part of the program today, to engage with what Grant has been recording from the discussion. The second thing I just want to mention is, I think we all know that today is also the gender shutdown. So at 12 o'clock, we're going to take a 15-minute pause in the program. As has been requested by the gender shutdown campaign. We're going to take that 15-minute pause in order to stand against gender-based violence. That does mean that the program might run a bit over, but I hope that's okay with everyone, because it does go into lunch, and so we have a bit of room to wiggle. Plus, there's also snacks here if anyone gets too hungry, which we'll come back to. So, on the snacks, we just want to give it over to a minute or two for Chef Mantis to come and explain, Mantis? To explain a bit about what the meal is about. Part of, you'll see in the discussion today, we'll touch on what kind of food system do we need that actually makes food more accessible and affordable to people. What is also a food system that's climate resilient, so that food prices don't rise as much as a result of climate shocks. Part of that is strengthening the cultivation and consumption of indigenous foods, part of which is in this menu that Chef Mantis prepared for us today. Mantis, over to you to tell us what we're eating.
Hello everyone, how are you? Thank you so much for inviting me here to do this little presentation. So, won't be too long. Basically, just to give you an idea of what I was thinking about when I was doing this menu. I was thinking about all the things I ate as a child, all the things that I eat with my friends from Nigeria, Zimbabwe, South Africa, it's a melting pot, so it's more of an indigenous fusion African menu. So starting from this side, we made a jollof rice, sorghum sushi with carapau on the inside. Carapau is a fish that's indigenous. I grew up eating carapau. I'm from Mozambique, so just merged everything together and just tried things out. And then roti, I grew up in Durban as well, so roti, bean curries, all of the things that I grew up eating. So I made a variation of rotis, open rotis. One has shredded meats like toto. So thank you everyone. Yeah, so I did that one. That's Sutu. I've got Sutu children, they really love it. I make it for them all the time. And then I did one with morojo. And then I did another one, which is a little bit more modern, with pulled free-range chicken. right? And then we made rice wraps with millet. You know, millet is an indigenous grain. So we filled the rice wraps with a nice herby millet and then some vegetables and things of the sort. And then we also made some familiar things, which is a free-range barbecue chicken, some Moroccan spiced. I really love Moroccan food. So some Moroccan spiced beef koftas. And then we also made some za'atar spiced wedges and some fruit. We've got some khemer to drink. We've got some fermented hibiscus. And we've also got some water. All of the ingredients here are sourced within the markets that I usually go to in Yeovil. African Marmalade, who is in Centurion, who does exceptional work by providing us with indigenous grain. And just a network of suppliers and workers who are helping in making food, indigenous food, affordable and accessible as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mantis. So, indigenous fusion food. So also just apologies to those who haven't had yet. We had to, as you know, cut it to get on with the program, but we are developing a system to make sure everyone gets to taste some. But at this point, over to you, Mark.
Okay. Do we have another mic as well? Okay, there's another mic there. Great, so thanks, Andrew. Welcome again. So we're here looking at food prices, who profits, and what is that? Who profits and what we as people have as an alternative. What are people's alternatives? So we want to come out of this. We're going to discuss, we're going to interact. We've got experts from the fields, expert activists, experts from universities, experts from campaigns, and experts because we all eat. So we're all experts on food. We all have a lot of expertise because we do it every day, hopefully, if we're lucky and privileged enough. So we want to come out of the end with some ideas of what can be people's alternatives that can be a more just, sustainable, equitable food system. So have your thinking hats on as well. Think as experts, all of you, what would you like to call for? And we're going to capture that at the end as well. But we've got our great panel here, and we're going to hear a few bits from them. We're going to do a few rounds of questions, and they're going to be responding, and we're going to open it up as well to the floor. So that's what we're going through, discussing, interacting, and hopefully looking for solutions. I should say, I'm Mark. I work at the University of Pretoria where I do research on food systems, food security, and I'm also involved with the Union Against Hunger, just transition in the food system. So I'm trying to not only be stuck in my ivory tower at the university, but at the university we do have that privilege of doing research. And I just want to share a few things just to set the scene in talking about prices. I'm going to start with something simple that most of us cook with some of the time, onions. So we've been looking at prices for 2 years. And we just take something simple like onions. A lot of them are sold through the municipal markets. And in the municipal markets, the farmer, over 2 years, on average, was getting 6.93 Rand per kilo for onions. Out of that, they have to pay for all the production, all the labor, all the transport to get it to the market. And then they get 6.93 Rand per kilo. And they were selling wholesale in these markets at 7.92 Rand. So they were available to any shop, any distributor at 7.92 Rand a kilo. Simple onions. The supermarkets in the same period were selling them onions per kilo at 22.97 Rand. The farmer is getting 6.93 Rand. The supermarket sells it to you and me at 22.97, a difference of 15 Rand and 5 cents. So this is kind of like, for me, the focus. I put down my other pen. Where is the 15 Rand going? Where is the 15 Rand going? And the onion is just the same. It might be wrapped in a piece of plastic or something. Often it's not even that. So it's not like it was ground up, processed, cooked into fancy things like Chef Mantis Shabani does. So where's that money going? Just for interest, because we've been interested in street traders. Street traders in the same 2 years on average are selling onions at 15 Rand, 12 cents a kilo. So a substantial saving over the supermarket price. But they're still making a profit and creating livelihoods for themselves, but they are making those onions more accessible. So in that 2 years, we looked at street traders, supermarkets, we looked at 10 different items. And all those 10 items, per kilo, street traders were selling them substantially cheaper than the formal sector, the supermarkets. If we take onions or tomatoes, onions were about 8 Rand cheaper, you can see here, than the supermarket. Tomatoes are almost 10 Rand cheaper per kilo than the supermarkets. And so in each case, in onions and tomatoes, the supermarkets were more than 50% more expensive than buying from the street trader for the same quantity of often the same, very much the same item. And we've looked also in different areas like Mahikeng. We were specifically pricing at the supermarket, in the street. Again, across all 10 items, the street traders were cheaper, even in Mahikeng, far from public municipal markets and so on. So what is going on with these prices? We all worry about inflation. So it was interesting for us. We looked at inflation from 1 year, 2023 to 24, and then 24 to 25. So we compared 1 year to the next year inflation. Across the 10 items, for a basket of those 10 items of fruits and vegetables, the wholesale prices went up 6.1%, okay? 6.1% higher. The supermarket formal sector prices went up 7.4%. So wholesale prices went up. Often that's driven by weather and things like that. There's a shortage of supplies. The supermarket prices went up more than that, 7.4%. The street traders went up 4.1%. So they absorbed some of that extra wholesale price increase, which we found very interesting. The supermarkets don't try and absorb that price increase. They try and increase their profits on the back of those price increases. And across the 10 items, while 7 went up in the wholesale markets, 3 went down year on year in the wholesale markets. 3 prices dropped, maybe because of improved farming conditions and so on. But did the supermarkets pass that on, that saving to their customers? No. There was no single item that reduced in price in the supermarkets. All 10 items went up, even though the wholesale prices went down on 3 items. For the street traders, they also dropped their prices on 3 items year on year because they were responding to the wholesale drop in price, responding to their customers, whereas the supermarkets don't. They only look at the profit, and I think it shows it in the prices. Anyway, it's not for me to talk here, but I just want to share some of those things which to me show there's a serious problem in our food system in terms of prices and where that money is going, where is that profit going. So we're going to hand over, I'm going to rather give to some of my great experts here. I think I should sit down, and I'm going to introduce them one by one as we go through. I want to start with Mervyn Abrahams here, who is the coordinator of the Pietermaritzburg Economic and Justice Dignity Project. And very importantly, they track prices. And these prices are freely available on their website. They track prices of a basket of goods, and they release reports every month. He can tell us more about it. But that kind of information on what people are actually paying for the food that they depend on for eating, we think is absolutely critical for understanding what's happening in the food system. So, Mervyn, please tell us a bit more about the main food price trends, based on your research, and what have you been observing in the last few years in South Africa? What are the impacts on poor and working class households of these prices and the trends in these prices?
So thanks. Hello, can you hear me? Yes. Hi, thanks, Mark. So I'm from the Pietermaritzburg Economic Justice and Dignity Group, based in KZN, but we have colleagues all around the country, and I have one of my colleagues here with me, Miriam, who lives here in Johannesburg and who tracks the basket of food within this very locality. And so she knows more about it than me. But I'll try and do my best. And so, I think the first thing I want to say is connect to what Andrew had said a little bit earlier. And that is that...
Sorry.
Can we stand?
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
So all the speakers be ready to stand. And can people please also try and be quiet in the room? We know we're eating a bit and so on, but can people please just be quiet and listen to the speakers? And thank you very much. Sure.
So really important to remember that a food system is embedded, lives within a broader economic system. And so that broader political economic system will drive that food system. So if we're living in a capitalist political economy, then of course that food system will be shaped by capitalism. And so the profit motive of the main players will drive that market. So that's the first thing, and it connects to also what Mark has said as to who profits? Why does a retail company, a ShopRite, the prices never drops, but an informal trader drops prices? Right? So it's that dynamic. And so I just want to paint just a very broad picture about the data that you can find on our website. And so we track a basket of 44 very basic foods. That basket includes things like 30 kgs of maize meal. It includes like 25 loaves of brown bread, because it's for a month, eh? It's not for a week. And households do go through 25 loaves or more. Often people say 25 loaves. Well, actually, that's not a lot of loaves for a household per month. So, and it has cooking oil, and it has tomatoes and potatoes and onions and a little bit of stock and salt and tea and peanut butter and so on. So it's the kind of foods that women tell us they would like to buy on a monthly basis should they have the money to buy it. Okay?
Mervyn, we have to be very short.
Okay.
So maybe we can get to what the trends and the impacts of those trends.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I
unfortunately, we only have a couple of minutes for each speaker in each round. Yeah,
so let me just give you a trend. So 2020, March 2020 to October 2025, that basket of food increased by 2,219 rand, which is 69% over 5 years. When we look at specific foods, for instance, you look at maize meal, it increased over that 5 years by 24%. Cooking oil increased by 43%. It spiked higher. At one stage it was 300, it came down, but it's still 43%. So it's always higher. It never comes down, it always goes higher. And so that is the prices we have seen. About a 69% increase over the last 5 years based on that basket. But of course, can I just say one more thing?
Sure.
But of course, prices are prices. You know, if wages had increased by 75%, if you had 75% more money, then of course you wouldn't feel it. So it's in relationship to the income. That's why it's an economic issue. When we look at the national minimum wage over that same period, and we know not everybody earns it, but if we look at it, then we see the national minimum wage increase over the same period by 31%. So there is a 37% higher increase in food prices than if you were earning the national minimum wage over that period.
Wow.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks very much, Mervyn. That is really the crunch between food prices going up higher and faster than people's incomes. And the same thing has happened with the grants that so many people depend on. They have not kept up with the increasing prices of food. And that's what so many people, even in this room and in this country, are feeling, the crunch. We are, of course, starting late. I hope you'll be flexible and also run late with us, but I'm going to have to ask the speakers to also keep things brief. And also, we have the next speaker is Brittany Kesselman, and I'm giving her a chance now because she's going to have to leave us at 12. Unfortunately, she has to go somewhere else, so she's going to have to leave us at 12. So Dr. Brittany Kesselman is a researcher with the Bioeconomy Chair at the UCT, University of Cape Town. And she also coordinates the Research for Agroecology Network Southern Africa. She has been doing a lot of research. I think many of you know her for years, working on indigenous foods, looking at colonialism and indigenous foodways. So Brittany, you're very welcome. Please share. I'm going to give you a chance to sort of share your inputs because I don't think you're going to get another chance. We do have a question for you, which is that in South Africa, with a constitution guaranteeing the right to food, why is this not being met? How do food prices relate to the food, and what role should the state be playing in this? If you can respond to that, but also feel free to add what you'd like to share with the House today before you have to leave. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, I think. Okay.
Thank you, Mark. And hello, everyone. It's really great to be with you, and I apologize for having to leave. I have to go to another event where I'm going to be fighting for farmers' rights and protection of seed systems, so I'm really sorry. Why is the right to food not being met when it's guaranteed in our constitution and when it's also an international human right? Well, like Mervyn said and Andrew said, it's because we have a capitalist food system. But then why do we have a capitalist food system? Because it's also a colonial food system, right? South Africa did not always have a capitalist food system. Food prices were not a thing in the past because food wasn't for sale. It was something that everyone had access to. And the reason we have this system now is because the Dutch East India Company, which was the world's first multinational corporation, brought capitalism to South Africa and decided that this was a good place where they could expand their profits. And ever since, we've been having food that's for sale, for profit, and a system where it's benefiting just a few who are getting wealthy while most people can't afford food. And a lot of the food that we do produce is going to other parts of the world, in world markets, instead of feeding people right here in South Africa. So because we have a capitalist food system, because food is produced as just a thing that you buy and sell, like a shirt or a shoe or any other thing, then we have hunger and we don't enjoy our right to food. So in terms of food prices, obviously, as Mervyn said, they result from our food system, and as long as the goal is profits, and not health or nutrition, then what we get is hunger. We get junk food because it's more profitable to produce that than to produce healthy food, and we get many people being unable to afford it. So the state is officially responsible for the right to food. That's how rights work, both in our constitution and in international human rights. So the state officially needs to be making sure that we all enjoy this right to food, but it's not, right? The state says, oh, it's the markets control the prices, we can't intervene in the markets, that's not our role. But the reality is, the state intervenes in the markets all the time, and so many things that the state does are actually affecting whether we get food. Because who sets minimum wages? The state. Who sets the level of taxes that these corporations pay and allows them to get so much profit? The state. Who decides the land use, whether the land is for farming or for another use? The state. Who decides whether informal traders are allowed to be on the streets in our cities selling food more affordable for us? The state. Who organizes the infrastructure, the water, the energy, the roads that are used by the farmers and the food processors and the people who sell the food? The state. So the state cannot tell us that they have no role in the food system other than maybe occasionally giving out a little bit of emergency food if people are hungry. The state has a huge role to play, and what we see in other countries, when a state decides to take that role seriously, they can make a real difference. So if we look at Brazil, which has twice now been on the hunger map of the world and then removed from the hunger map when they beat hunger, then came back on when they changed their policies, then went off the map again when they put the policies back, you can see what a government can do. And that means things like subsidies for healthy foods. That means things like capping the prices of healthy foods. That means things like distributing food in ways that people don't need money to buy it, if that's the situation. It means using the power of the state to buy food. When they buy for school lunches, for hospitals, for other things, they buy from small-scale farmers. They buy from local producers. They make sure it's produced in an environmentally sound way. So there's so much that a state can do if they're committed, and unfortunately we're not seeing our government do that here in South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Brittany. Yeah, I mean, it's such a simple and powerful thing to show, as Brazil has, that when a government takes action to end hunger, they can do it. And when the politics change, and the new politicians are not interested in addressing the needs of those in poverty, hunger comes back again. It can be done if there's the political will, and I think that's important for us all to remember. We're not just victims of what's happening naturally There are policy decisions that shape it. So thanks for that, Brittany. Sorry you can't stay with us for all of the discussions. I now want to go to Bosiso Moyo. He is a scholar activist or an activist scholar, or both. He is affiliated with the Institute for Social Development and the Center of Excellence in Food Security at the University of Western Cape, and probably more importantly is a secretariat member and organizer for the Union Against Hunger. So let's welcome him with a round of applause or clicks of your one hand if you've only got one free hand. Bosiso, yeah. So the Union Against Hunger has been campaigning, including on food prices, including targeting ShopRite and others. Maybe you can tell us more about that, why you're doing that, and maybe what you're hoping to achieve with that. Thanks.
Greetings, comrades and colleagues and everybody else who just found themselves here. We really appreciate you giving off your time to be with us this morning. My name is Bosiso, as introduced by Mark. So why am I before you? Please, feel free, come. So why am I before you this morning? It's simple. You've heard about the contextual analysis. People don't have jobs, so people cannot afford food. We've also heard we have a constitutionally guaranteed right to food in this country. What does all of this mean? So in a context of joblessness, landlessness, and more importantly, the highest inequality in the world, you have then what you find as this newly formed Union Against Hunger. What is it that we are getting at? We are saying there's a lot of great work happening in the space. The evidence base is there. It is clear in terms of what needs to happen. Not only here in South Africa, we've also heard about international best practice, what we can learn from other countries. So what am I getting at today? I am saying it is time to end the dialogue. It is time for action over rhetoric. All right, that is why the Union Against Hunger is here. We are here to put a claim on this right to food. So what does it mean to have the right to food? If I am hungry, whose problem is that? All right, so that is why we are here. But more importantly, what is the biggest elephant in the room? All right, we're going to have our Q&A. Government does not necessarily produce food. We all know that. So the biggest elephant in the room is what is the role of the private sector and corporate players in ensuring that they also have a constitutional fidelity to this right to food that we have codified as a country. So what is the Union Against Hunger here to do? We are here to call on the government to lead a national zero hunger campaign. And part of that is that we have a whole range of demands, and we're going to talk about them today later on, because it's about what we as the people want insofar as a nourishing food system for all South Africans. So we want to talk about the informal food system, we want to talk about the unemployed, we want to talk about our children, but more importantly, we want to talk about this food affordability gap, because we are talking about social protection and what the government can do. So the government is not going to react unless we demand it to react. And the problem is, as South Africans, we have let go of the right to food and nutrition in this country. We are well versed in education rights, other socioeconomic rights, housing, transport, you name it. But you too have a constitutionally codified right to food. So let's talk about that this morning. Let's talk about the food system we want, but more importantly, I want us to think about the big elephant in the room. Where are the corporates in this discussion? Where's ShopRite? They are all meant to be part of this room, and they're not here. So what do we have to do about that? And for those who are angry enough about this situation, we are saying, come on board and join the Union Against Hunger.
Thank you, Bosiso. Thank you very much, Bosiso. We are coming to 12 o'clock, and we are here in an activist space at the People's Summit, and we believe in the intersection, the link, the connections between many struggles. And at 12 o'clock today, there's a national moment, a standstill moment to think about, reflect on, call for an end to gender-based violence and femicide. So we want in this space to respect that and be part of that. And we hope all of you here want to see an end to gender-based violence. It's a blight on our society. It's a tragedy. It's holding back women who should be contributing, could be contributing even more than they do already in society. So we're very worried about the food crisis, but we're also worried and concerned with the gender-based violence crisis, including femicide. So we want to, in this room, observe it. We're going to have 15 minutes where we're going to in silence. We're going to be collective. We're going to be together in this moment. Yeah?
The people are observing it just outside.
Okay, we're going to be here, yeah.
Okay, but if people...
Yeah.
it's just-
So we're observing this moment, and we'd call on you to reflect on the tragedy of gender-based violence and what more we can do about it in our own lives. Are we doing enough? So I think we can be considering those things. There are people outside, but I think we can stay here. We actually have a sort of nice carpet here, and the call was to lie down. So please, you know, it's quite nice sometimes lying down on the floor together for 15 minutes and thinking. It felt like a hectic, like half an hour with food going around and inputs. So maybe we need to take a moment to breathe, to lie down. You can, of course, stay in your chair if you're more comfortable in your chair, but feel free to use the space on the floor. Even our cooks and chefs will ask you to join us because we're saying it's 15 minutes on our work. So together, let's first just breathe for a moment together. If you can breathe, we're just going to breathe in and breathe out. So thank you for joining in with that. Now we're back to another very important discussion on food and the situation of food, because a lack of food is also a violence in our society that too many people, millions of people, experience. And I want to welcome Dudu Mazia. She is a communications specialist with over 13 years of experience, and she's currently the head of communications at Grow Great, which is an NGO campaigning around food issues. She works on improving maternal and child health in South Africa and encouraging change of behavior around food. So, Dudu, you're very welcome. There's a microphone here which I hope is coming on. And 3 minutes or something. Okay. We have very little time. I hope you'll be patient. And as we started quite late, stay with us a bit late to maybe 12:45 or so. And we're feeding you. So, but Dudu,
You have no choice.
but Dudu, a few minutes. Yeah, thank you.
Can you hear me? Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, Sanbonani, Dumilang, Absheni, Ndimachironi, Clockett, you know. My name is Dudu Mazia. I'm from the Grow Great campaign. We're a campaign that really focuses on ensuring that children are not stunted. Stunting is a condition where a child doesn't grow according to their height, and it also affects the ability to learn and to concentrate and, you know, to perform well at school. And while we're doing this, we're working with a lot of pregnant women, and soon we discovered, no man, you know, while we're supporting women while they're pregnant, while we're supporting these children, but they can't really thrive if they're hungry. They can't do much if they're not getting enough food to eat and they're not having, you know, sufficient nutrients in their foods. And that's when we realized that, you know what, we need to identify foods. These 10 foods were mostly maize meal, rice, beans, lentils, eggs, amasi, and these are 10 foods that are put in a basket. These foods should be cheaper, but currently they're not. Right now, if you go to ShopRite, if you go to Pick n Pay, if you go to Spar, a tin of fish is going for a good 30 Rand, 27 to 30 Rand. And then if you're using the child support grant, like Mervyn spoke about earlier on, you've got about 350 Rand or the basic income support grant or 530 Rand. You can't even afford to buy all those foods at once because they're too expensive. And people are not angry enough. People are like, okay, it's fine, we'll buy. You know, I'm like, guys, this is not okay. You need to be angry. You cannot be spending so much money on basic food which you need to make your children live longer and for your children to thrive. If you're pregnant, how can you have an efficient pregnancy, a healthy pregnancy, if you're not eating well? These foods are nutritious, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say, you know what? Let's make this economy work for everybody. Let's make it work for us, the consumers, the business owners, and government. Please come on board. Let's lower these 10 food prices and make them affordable for everybody. And that's my little 2 to 3 minutes for now.
Great. Thank you, Dudu. That was succinct. Thanks, Dudu. Yeah, you can clap, you can cheer. Thanks very much. I'm now going to go to Oscar Sitole. He's a PhD student at University of Pretoria, also linked to and supported by the Center of Excellence in Food Security. And he's been doing a lot of research on informal parts of the food system, street traders and so on. And he's now working in his PhD on looking at how change happens in the food system, where power lies in the food system. So, Oscar, you know, when we're thinking about the food system and how it's structured, you know, there's a lot of politics in it. Maybe you can share with us your reflections on politics and power in the food system. Thank you. For a few minutes.
Right. Thanks, Mark. Good day, good people. My name is Oscar Sitole. I'm a PhD student at the University of Pretoria. I conduct research on food systems, food security, and informality. My current project looks at the power in the food system and who possesses power and who has the power to effect change in the food system. So the food system is a reflection of what's happening globally in as far as power dynamics are concerned. We have power asymmetries between the global south and the global north. So in simple South African English, I will try not to use technical grammar to accommodate everyone. What drives food prices? I must say that food prices are not a direct result of the supply and demand. Rather, they are actually a deep structural, economic, and power asymmetries within the food system. So I've listed a couple of few factors that drives indirectly and directly food prices. One of the factors which I want to bring into your attention is corporate concentration and market power. So as we've had the third speaker, Busiso, noted that we have a situation in the world and in South Africa whereby there's a few selected number of corporates, private sector, to put it simply, that control the food system and they dominate it from the seed to the dinner plate. These corporations, they control pricing and they've eliminated healthy competition in the food system. I'm tempted to mention names, which is quite appropriate in this case. So, right, okay. We heard earlier that bread is a staple food. Our first speaker mentioned that bread is a staple food. But I must say that in South Africa, there's a few selected number of processors, I can name them, that control this space. One of them is Tiger Brands. The second one is Pioneer Food and Premier Food. These are the three main actors that control what comes in our dinner plates, particularly as far as bread is concerned, which is commonly consumed. I will jump to the retailing sector of the food system because the food system is made up of different dimensions from the farming, processing, distribution to retailing. Why am I particularly focusing on the retailing? Because food is very much expensive, honestly. In South Africa, we have 4 supermarket groups that dominate the retailing space, which is ShopRite, Pick n Pay, Woolworths, and Pick n Pay. Boxer is part of the group owned by Pick n Pay. Yes. So we can see that these high levels of concentration in the food system is very insidious and has pernicious effects in the food system. And this shows that there are winners and losers in the food system. They are driving prices higher. People are starving. People cannot access food. Now you cannot simply go to the supermarket and fill a basket. With 1,000 rand, you'll only get few selected number of items. And another factor that I've also wanted to bring into attention is that we do not have a price monitoring or stabilization mechanism in South Africa. There's no clear, explicit policy that regulates prices in South Africa, and this is the root of the problem. In order for us to address this, we need to challenge the government to make sure that we have a food price stabilization mechanism or policy. And the last factor, I must acknowledge that there are global geopolitics happening, and they also influence the price that we normally see in our shelves. For instance, I will use cooking oil. Cooking oil prices skyrocketed in the past few years. Why? Because of the Ukraine war. We've seen that. So we must acknowledge such factors that in the global sphere and in the local sphere that we are in a deep crisis. Corporates are profiteering in food. They are investing, they're treating food as a commodity, not as a human right. So we need to stop that. We need to end that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Oscar. Yeah, thanks very much. And he mentioned some of these big food companies. You can sit closer now, Oscar, as Brittany has left us as well. And I hope you know, I mean, when he mentioned Pioneer Foods, one of the companies that bakes a very large amount of bread in the country, it's actually owned by PepsiCo. It's not a company on its own. It's part of PepsiCo, the cool drink company. It's an international company, and they own Pioneer Foods that bakes a lot of the bread that we depend on every day. And I think some people noticed in the supermarkets, you think Boxer is competing with Pick n Pay. No, they're the cheap brand of Pick n Pay that you find in the townships. YouSave is another brand of ShopRite. Checkers is part of ShopRite as well. You know, so, and we're going to see Walmart coming in its own brand. They already own Macro and Game, and now they're going to come and trade in their own name as well here. But they're the same people across these. You think Macro and Game are competing? No, they're owned by the same people. They're targeting different niches in the market. That's how the market works. So yeah, there's a great lack of competition, which means they can push for lower prices from producers, and they can push higher prices onto consumers. Anyway, let me not say too much. Let me go back to Mervyn, and we're going to do a quick round. I'm going to ask each of you to try and stick to a minute or two at the most. We want to start focusing on what do we do. We've heard a bit about the problems in the food system. Many of you in this room, you experience these problems on a daily basis. What do we need to do about it? You also please think about what you want done, and we're going to share some ideas from the panel. Do also note Grant is working away here. If you want to quietly walk over to Grant and see what he's drawing, feel free to, but just quietly and not in a great line, 1 by 1 or 2 by 2 or something, so while also listening to the speakers. But Mervyn, over to you. I mean, from Pietermaritzburg, Economic Justice and Dignity, what do you think needs to be done to make food more accessible, to address prices? Thank you.
So for us,
and please stand still so people can see you as well, and the mic will come on.
because we are coming in from the affordability angle, right? And there are different angles into the food issue. For us, it's an economic issue. And we need to address this within the broader framework. So it is a question of incomes. It is a question of incomes, it's a question of wages, social grants, and all other forms of household income. And it's a question of driving prices down. So price regulation for us, that would be an important issue. Government needs to regulate certain prices, particularly the prices of our basic staple foods. That's the first area. The second area would be to stimulate a more local food system. So it was interesting what you were saying about the difference between a retail store and an informal trader. So, I mean, our thinking is we have to move away from this informal thing. It's not meant to be informal. The informal needs to become the formal. So we should be accessing all our fresh produce from what we call the informal sector. That's where we should be. Supermarkets should not be selling fresh produce. Finish and clear. Okay, that's for somebody else as an income. So for us, the localization would be an important aspect.
Great, thanks for that. Busiso, Union Against Hunger, what do you want to see happen? How can communities be mobilized to take action on this? How can communities find solutions from the ground?
Right, so from the Union Against Hunger's perspective, the story is simple. We are saying there has to be a political cost and an economic cost for the violation and the regression that we see in this country insofar as the right to food and nutrition is concerned. So what we are saying is, what does that political cost look like? Mervyn speaks about the local government or the local sphere of the food system. Next year, we know we have the local government elections coming up. What will be the political cost? That's what we are saying to communities. Take on your ward councillors, engage. More importantly, business and human rights. We're talking about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about an economic cost. So if ShopRite cannot show leadership, if Pick n Pay, if Boxer, Pioneer Foods, all of these cannot come on board and show leadership and be part of the solution, we as the Union Against Hunger, we are then saying, let there be an economic cost. What does that look like? That's the homework we're giving communities.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Busiso. Dudu from Grow Great, you have your campaign, Dudu. How is your campaign challenging power and prices in the food system? What's your vision that this campaign is contributing to for the food system?
Okay. Our vision is that we need to increase the demand for these 10 foods, for these 10 affordable foods. We want the demand to be increased. If we demand for an increase of these foods, we actually, I'm going to read this out because I wrote it out. If we increase demand for these foods by making them cheaper for consumers, for me and you, we create an opportunity to decentralize food production and ultimately making it easy for everybody to have something at the table. So currently what we find is that these big producers, your ShopRite, your Pioneer Foods, your Tiger Brands, they all want something from the table, but we're saying, look, you know what, if you work with us, you actually all can have something at the table. You don't have to be greedy. We can all have something. And that's why we're prioritizing having these 10 foods really being discounted and being made more affordable. What we want to demand from you, from me and you, to demand for these food prices to be lower. What we want them to be cheaper, want them to be affordable. Why? Because it affects our children. Ultimately, they don't suffer. Our children, I see there are a lot of little people here. If they're not eating well, who suffers the most? They do. Mothers, we are the ones who are responsible for cooking. How can you cook? How can you make a nutritious meal if it's expensive, if you're balancing, if you don't know what to add, what to minus? It shouldn't be our problem. It shouldn't be such a problem that we don't even know what to put together. We shouldn't be adding money for transport to get into the car and then you have to put together this meal. Meanwhile, there are abilities and there are ways of making these food prices cheaper. We've got UN for Hunger who are fighting, who are saying, guys, let's make action now. We've got Mervyn, and that's why I love this panel, it's so powerful. We've got Mervyn here who's following these prices, who's saying currently we're not keeping up with inflation. Yeah, but we need to take action. We need to make sure that the child support grant is also going up with inflation. But ultimately, as Grow Great, what we want is for our children to thrive. And the only way they can thrive is if they're having nutritious foods, protein-dense foods that they can afford. If they can't afford it, we are doomed. We do not want to be raising children who cannot think, who cannot have the ability to do what we're doing now because of the choices that we made. We have the power right now, and the power is for us to make noise, to be angry, and to demand for these food prices to go down. Are you angry enough? Yeah. Are you angry enough? Yeah. Is that action?
Thank you. Okay, thanks. Good, you can hold on to that one. Thank you, Dudu. And if we're hungry, we're angry. There was a song about that. Oscar, you've been doing research with so-called informal traders, street traders, cart traders. Do you see solutions from below that these people in poverty themselves are creating? The mic will come on, I think. Okay, yeah. What do you think?
Right. Thanks, Mark, once again. I must say that we have an informal, what other people will commonly refer or simplistically refer as informal sector. We have an informal sector that is already working for people in South Africa and in the global South. We are talking specifically about street traders who sell fresh produce in the streets, spaza shops, and other micro-scale grocery stores. So this informal sector is already working for the poor. It's saving the needs of the poor in many ways. It's creating livelihoods for those who are selling and also create a situation whereby there's adequate access to food. based on my research in Soshanguve Township, I was looking at mobile street traders, and I was looking at how they contribute to food security, particularly accessibility. And one thing that I've noted there is that these cart traders, I did price tracking, I compared with the local ShopRite there, and then what I found there is that the ShopRite was selling 60 rand 45 cents more expensive in the overall items that I tracked. I tracked eight items of fresh produce, and then what I found out is that cabbage, I mostly focus on cabbage because cabbage is the mostly consumed staple veggie in low-income households. They were selling that cabbage for R4.98. I'm talking about the cart traders. And cart traders are trolley traders. Yeah, who are fake, hawking fresh, yes, per kilo. It was R4.98 from the cart traders. And then from ShopRite, the very same cabbage, it was R10.57. So you can see the difference that it's highly unsustainable. And the difference was even larger in peppers. Peppers were 27.80 cents per kilo from the cart traders. And then from ShopRite, it was 51 rand, staggering 51 rand 27 cents. So this kind of shows that why I'm particularly looking at ShopRite. ShopRite claims that they sell food at an affordable price. You can see in their slogan, lower prices for everyone, always. But in this case, that's not always. So I am saying that we need to acknowledge these non-corporate food retailers, which are commonly referred to informal traders. And from today, let us refrain from calling these people informal traders. Let us call them important food system actors that are playing an important role in food accessibility, particularly nutritious food. Thank you very much.
So we have street traders like these guys. We see them in every township now, pushing the trolleys around the streets. And often they have very fresh produce. They bought it that morning from the market. And even when they sell it at your door, they're cheaper than the ShopRite that you have to get in a taxi to go to as well. So let's support that kind of business. They're also creating livelihoods for themselves. They are in those townships and also spending their money in those townships. That's one part of the solution, perhaps, as well as joining the campaigns of Grow Great, Union Against Hunger, and keeping on with the tracking of the prices and the analysis. So thanks to the panelists. Hopefully you'll get a chance to add something at the end, but I want to hear from the rest of the audience. We can take your inputs, your suggestions, your information, also your questions. So is there someone who's carrying the mics around for us? Who's carrying the mic around? Oh, yeah. So this one's working as well. So, all right. So let me take a few hands. I'm gonna start with the lady in pink and then go to you as well. Maybe just say your name and then make your point. But please keep it very short. There's a lot of people in the room, so please keep it very short. And stand if you want so people can see you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Florence Sekolane, and I stand here as a domestic worker. They say you are what you eat. What is it that I eat as a domestic worker from what I'm receiving as a monthly salary? When you look at the school, we need like health lunch boxes for our kids. They say you need to cook health meals. What is health meal exactly for me as a domestic worker? Can I afford what we call health food? Because when you look at already, we are divided. The supermarkets, that these are for the wealthy, for the poor, they can't afford. Because when you look at around our communities, there's no Woolworths. There's no Checkers Hyper. There are those supermarkets that they put like ShopRite, Boxer, and other things, of which they already rating as to where we buy our food, where we get our food. We are not supposed to be getting our food where other people they're getting it, because already we are being valued or being looked at from our salaries that we get. So if I would ask is that, what is health food exactly for me as a domestic worker? Thank you.
Thanks, Florence. Maybe pass the mic to the lady next to you.
Um, Hello, everyone. Okay, my name is Miriam. Unfortunately, I'm here. I'm one of the people that track prices in and around here, Johannesburg, in the shops. I'm at this level. Yes.
So when Mervin's sitting here talking about the prices, it's
Yes.
people like Miriam who are getting the prices, and
Yes,
other
I'm the one.
women in other areas around the country
Yeah.
doing that. Yeah.
So
So
basically,
welcome.
what people have been saying here is true. Guys, when you get to the shops and track the prices, you compare, especially with the vegetables issue. Most of the people in our community, they buy on the street vendors. But unfortunately now we see there is a motive that they are behind. I think it's being pushed by those people that own supermarkets because, like you said, they are not supposed to be selling vegetables and stuff so that they can give credit to the other people on the street. And currently they've come up with this strategy of chasing out the people who are selling vegetables and fruits on the street. They've been given notice in this past 2 weeks that they should stop selling vegetables on the streets. So now, how many people are going to suffer? How many people afford that to go and buy fruits and vegetables in the supermarket? And how are those people going to be affected in their own livelihoods? Because they are surviving by selling those fruits and vegetables. So how are they going to survive after that? So we can see that there's a motive behind chasing them because they now realize, oh, people are not buying the vegetables in the shops. They are buying on the streets. So we have to chase away those people from the streets. So yeah, it's such difficult.
The other hands? Okay, the lady here, then I'm going to go to the back there. I'm going to start here and then come to the back here. Yeah. Maybe just stand up so we can see.
Sarah Anderson from the United States. American people are not boycotting South Africa's G20. Really happy to be here. I was going to ask what more could be done to support the informal traders. I guess decriminalizing is part of it, but do people want to say more about what you like to see done to support them?
Okay, thank you for that. We'll come back to answer the questions just now. Let's come to the gentleman at the back.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maibongwe. I have a question to Oscar. How does the war in Ukraine affect the rise in prices in oil in South Africa? I need to understand that.
Okay. All right, thanks for that short, sweet question. Other hands? Over here. And then we'll go to the back there. I just want to understand. No, can we just get the mic? You stand up. Stand up.
I'd love to hear from the panelists about the link between food prices, hunger, and violence against women.
Okay, thank you for that. Cool. And then the mics are going to go to the back there. Yes, you could.
Thank you. My name is William. I'm from Rustenburg. Coming from the side of Union Against Hunger. I've been listening from all the speakers what they have said, but then, they are calling for more action. I just need to understand that are we going to deal with that plan from this gathering of today? Because of if we are going just to talk and not come up with a framework of saying how is this action going to be implemented on the ground, it will be just another talk show. Thank you.
So, Tiamo, come this way. So there was someone just behind you there, the lady behind the Rustenburg, William, behind William. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zanele Bebe, and I'm from Northwest University. So we were discussing the issue of food and so forth, and while we were having the discussion, I was thinking of a solution. My solution would it not be ideal to go back to subsistence farming? We can try to farm vegetables and fruit in our yards in order to, try to cut down the costs. If you can farm, seeds are very cheap. You can go to a food lovers market, ask for rotten fruit, take those rotten fruits, plant them, and start a small garden in order to cut down your cost. Would not going back to subsistence farming be a solution to this?
William wanted solutions and a way forward, and I think let's look at those, and we'll ask the panelists to also respond before we close. So I'm going to come here, and then I'm going to go back to there. Benny, Andrew, you can stay there. Yeah, Stephen.
quick question for Busiso. How do I join the Union Against Hunger?
Practical. Okay, at the back here.
All right, thank you. I'm Liza Mfana from the University of Fort Hare, Rifa. I think my first question, the previous speaker already captured it. How do we get involved? But also to just try and come to the conversation of the solutions, right? On my side, what is the possibility of us establishing and sustaining alternative markets as the people, right? So beyond us being reliant on ShopRite and all of these multinational conglomerates, how do we get to a point where as the people, we establish and protect our own markets without, allowing ourselves to be bullied through bylaws and all of these things? How would that look practically?
Okay, thank you for that. I saw a hand just here to the front, the lady standing up here. You can, I think Andrew's there. Do I see any hand from this side of the room? It's going to be your last chance. Okay, all right.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah.
My name is Pulani. I'm from... I'm going to talk from the South African perspective. We know that there's a 350 that has been earned, and we know that it's below the minimum wage. So the solution that I think should be happening is, can we not gather according to districts, because we have districts throughout the country, instead of the people that earn that 350 be a means to the end? Can we not gather them and maybe go to the solution that was said by the lady with regards to farming? And we have different districts farming different things, and we trade amongst each other. Because if I'm alone, I can only go 1 mile, but if we are 2 or 3, we can go 3 or 10 miles. So instead of us working in silos, let us try and take those 350, teach our people that let us come together, let us do something together with those 350. That 350 should just be a seed, because it can never be a means to an end. Thank you.
It's going to be the last hand here, and before we go back to our panel. White hat.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wanda. I come from an organization, which is a civic organization called Ukanya Welanga. First, I'd like to ask, is this the last event that you guys will be doing like this, and then that's it, and it ends there? Please take note as a follow-up question to that. Is this the last one?
No, of course not. This is only one of many.
Yeah, okay, cool. So my suggestion would be maybe after this, and it would have been really more interesting if we had maybe like more people coming from their respective towns or townships, and then you sort of maybe gather a survey that will be in a form of a, sort of a policy consultation, and then you can submit that policy document to obviously the government, and then so that the government can start doing or intervening in the markets, because according to the economic market, if there's market failures, the government ought to always intervene to correct those market failures. We do have South Africa something called the South African competition, where prices, if they go up, they have to intervene. But it's interesting, for the last plus or minus 10 years, they haven't been really doing their job. So someone would rather maybe say they captured, or I don't know, because they're supposed to be correcting these market failures they're speaking about. So I think that that's the kind of direction that we should look into to assist. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Paul.
Calling for actual policy suggestions on what policies could make a difference. I'm going to give the panelists a chance. Again, we're going to have to keep it very short. There were a few specific questions I hope you took notes of and will be responding to. And some of them were inputs and comments you can respond to if you want to. Dudu.
I'd like to respond to the lady who was asking about what nutritious foods can she eat as somebody who earns a lower income, and I'd also like to answer your question about gender-based violence. So as Grow Great, we did research on these 10 foods, and I'm going to read them out so that I make sure I've got all of them. It's eggs, beans, lentils, tin fish, maize meal, peanut butter, rice, amasi, soya mince, and powdered milk. we chose these foods because they're full of nutrients, but they also got a long shelf life. So for instance, you can have pap and mas, you can have pap and milk, you can have lentil soup. That way you're making sure that the food that you buy lasts longer in your household, but it's also nutritious, so that you're not only giving yourself foods that are going to give you high spikes of sugar. And that's what we usually find, unfortunately, when you go buy ikota or you go buy my chips, that it's quite filling for that moment, but then after that, a few hours later, you get hungry, and it also increases your chances of getting cholesterol, diabetes, because of the high sugar, high salt, and all of that. So these are the 10 foods. And what I'll do, I'll give you our WhatsApp number. We've got a WhatsApp bot where you can actually SMS, and we give you recipes on how to cook these types of foods and how you can make sure that you're having nutritious foods with these kind of foods that are actually affordable, have got a longer shelf life, so you don't have to worry about fridge space, because sometimes fresh foods, they don't last as long, and then that's another problem why we have to buy them locally from our vendors who are right next door. Yeah. And then I wanted to answer her question about how GBV and pregnant women and vulnerability all goes in hand together. Hunger is a demon, because when you're hungry, you at your most vulnerable. When you're pregnant, you're at your most vulnerable, and sometimes if you're unemployed, you're even more vulnerable. And often or not, we find women, in our sector especially, pregnant women staying in relationships where they're being abused. They don't have a sense of agency because they don't have the income to support themselves or to support the child that they're bringing up. And then they stay in these violent situations. And as women, not having the agency to look after yourself, not having an income, not having some form of employment, you stay in a situation which shouldn't allow you to, to be there. And often or not having the ability to have a source of income or to have your own food or to have nutritious foods lets you stay in a situation which puts you in a compromised position. And that's where we found the linkages are. So ultimately, that's why we need platforms like these to empower women to be able to make the right food choices, so that you're able to almost escape out of a situation, know that, okay, even though I don't have a full 7 colors meal, I'm able to have pap and amasi, I'm able to have tin fish and rice, and I'm still having the right nutritious food. One of the propagandas that I just want to deal with, that people, they love labeling food and saying this is poor food, this is rich food. There is no such thing as poor food and rich food. Amasi, cabbage, beans, all those foods are nutritious foods. They're full of vitamins. Let's stop labeling food as poor food, as food for poor people. Those foods are nutritious, and we should not undermine the value that they hold. Okay.
Thanks, Dudu. Mervyn?
Thank you, Dudu.
I think people still want to see you, Mervyn.
Okay, yeah. I don't have a specific answer to a specific question.
But you can
so
make your
just
call
to
as well. What
just
call?
to reflect on a few things. I mean, it's useful, and we hear that all the time around subsistence farming, farming in the township, farming in your backyard, and so on. And for those who can do it, by all means, please do so. It could be helpful. We're not saying you shouldn't. But there are many people who cannot do that, and for whom that is too expensive. I mean, you've got to fence off a place to keep the goats and the dogs out. You've got to get water. You've got to get, so there are a lot of things that militate against it from an affordability point of view. But if you can, by all means, continue doing that. I think what we need to, as a society, is we need to become much more active around food issues. I also want to pick up what Miriam said, in terms of the municipal bylaws, which militate, which says to traders, you can't trade in order to protect the big retail stores and the malls. And so we need to work at that level to say to the municipality, you need to have a food policy, you need to include these people, we want access to affordable food. So perhaps that could be one of the campaigns for the local government elections. Which political party are prepared to support the informal traders in a manner that provides a good livelihood and access to food, and those parties who are not prepared to, you won't get our vote. It's something like that. Thanks.
Thanks, Mervyn. Pass the mic. Busiso. And we want to hear some of the calls, specific calls for action. I think Mervyn touched on some, but I'm sure Union Against Hunger has a lot to call for. And Grant is listening, and he's going to be interpreting that artistically as well.
Right, so to be quick about it, unionagainsthunger.org. Unionagainsthunger.org, it's one word. You get on there, you'll have a better understanding of our mission and vision, and more importantly, you'll be able to get a hold of me, all right? But what is crucial is that what we are doing as a Union Against Hunger, we are incubating this movement. We are not the leaders of this movement. We are not the Union Against Hunger. What we are doing is we are going into communities, setting up shop, and working with communities themselves who are at the front line of this issue. So to my brother there, of course, you've drawn closer to the Union Against Hunger. We are only starting this journey. As you already know, we had a very successful World Food Day campaign where we were able to hand over memorandum to the presidency. There's a whole lot of other things that we've been plotting and scheming. In particular, we held a very active picket at the ShopRite headquarters here in Centurion. Similarly, it's not about being adversarial because we cannot be given to easy analysis. These are complex issues and we need to be strategic about how we go about it. So another institution that we are now drawing closer to is the South African Human Rights Commission, because this is about the right to food and how best we can articulate that. So early on in the new year, we will be bringing them to task again to tell us, them as an institution, where do they find themselves insofar as this right to food issue. So they have committed to say early next year they're going to embark on a right to food inquiry. So we want to find ways of working with government, making sure our proposals reach that. So there's a whole lot going on. But what is more important is that from a UAH perspective, we are talking about, we want government leadership. From a legislative perspective, food waste. We spoke about it yesterday, and I suppose it came out today. 11,000 children died because of malnutrition in this country. At the same time, we're talking about 10 million tons of food going to waste. That is unacceptable. So that is where we are. We are confronting government to come closer and show leadership, legislative framework that can guide us in this space. Second of all, we cannot play a blind eye to the elephant in the room. So we are calling people to come and rally behind the UAH. Why is this important? Power comes from two things, money or people. We don't have money. We don't have jobs, we don't have land. So what are we going to do about this to ensure that the corporates actually listen? It's about people power. It's about going into communities. Let us do what we can where we are. All right, let us engage and ensure, more importantly, that what? There's an economic cost to this issue. Lastly, it's about what is possible in terms of that policy engagement and policy interface. We currently have an opportunity, comrades. The national policy on food and national security for this country is currently under review. What are we doing? We are working close with communities such that when the government comes and says, what type of food system do you want? We must all be clear on what it is we are looking for and how to articulate that such that government takes us seriously. So, for those who are looking for me, get my number after this, unionagainsthunger.org. Find the community leaders. We're setting up task teams, but more importantly, get my number. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Mark, can I come to you just now? Oscar, there were a few specific questions for you. Just in brief.
Yeah. Okay, the first speaker, Right. So the first question that I will answer will be based on what more can we do to support street traders. So we have to strive to create an enabling environment for our street, not only our street traders, the informal food traders. How do we do that? We recently saw that in Johannesburg, there have been activities surrounding the eviction of street traders in their selling spaces. We have to work collaboratively with the government, particularly the municipal government, to ensure that we create enabling environments for them to maneuver and thrive. We are not enforcing a sense of dependency, but we are saying to the government, please ease the restrictions, because you would find that in as far as the allocation of trading permits, for instance, it's quite cumbersome process because most of these people there, some of them, they never went to school. So it becomes a challenge for them to outmaneuver these bureaucratic hurdles and cumbersome processes. So in simple terms, I'm trying to say that the government must have the political will to collaborate with the informal traders, street traders particularly. So the second question was in relation to how the Ukraine war affects food prices. Okay, our food system is globally connected, and our food travels miles from where it's produced to where we can find it easily in our shelves. So the war in Ukraine, it drove up energy and fossil fuels, because our food system is built and embedded in fossil fuels. So it drove high things like your energy, that war, and it also drove things like your herbicides, your pesticides, and all that. So this speaks to what we earlier referred to as the corporate input regime. So there's few selected number of corporates that controls or dominate inputs like your pesticides, herbicides, and all that. So the war there, it disturbed or distracted the supply of such important inputs, and also it affected the supply of important agriculture products like sunflower. So that's why you find that in the shelves, cooking oil was very much expensive.
Thank you, Oscar. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to answer some of these questions in very brief. We want to close with some final calls for action. If you have a call you want to share for us to record, for Grant to capture maybe in the artwork as well, which he might not finish it all today, but he will finish it later. Have it in mind, but it's going to have to be a very short, a one-liner. Mark, you wanted to add as well. Maybe you've got a call as well. Yep.
I want to speak just quickly on this issue of ShopRite and plant a seed in this meeting. I'd like to call for a national day of action next year against ShopRite and against high food prices. And I'd like to ask people to start thinking and planning for that national day of action against ShopRite. This year, because of our actions, ShopRite asked to meet with the Union Against Hunger. When we said we would meet with ShopRite, we sent a list of delegates that were going to meet with them. It included Mervyn, me, a few other people. But then when they saw Zwelinzima Vavi on the list, they said they're not prepared to meet with us if Zwelinzima Vavi is on the list. So we said, no, we choose who will be on our list, not you, so we're not prepared to meet with you. So we didn't have that meeting. But we have to bring them back to the table, and we have to force them to talk, and we have to force them to reduce prices. The 10 best buys that Dudu talked about, they've been there for 2 years, sitting with ShopRite. ShopRite and other retailers are blocking that. They have refused to go forward with that, and we have to identify them. The profiteering that Oscar talked about from basic vegetables, you know where it goes? The CEO of ShopRite takes 87 million rand a year for salary. 87 million rand a year. ShopRite profits 13 billion rand a year. They are making profits from hunger. They are making profits from the 350. The people go with their 350 or their 370, buying essential foodstuffs. ShopRite takes some of it to give to Peter Engelbrecht, the boss of ShopRite. So by fighting ShopRite, we will force down prices. We will make it easier for formalized, informal traders to sell vegetables and so on. So please, comrades, let's agree National Day of Action against ShopRite. Pickets at ShopRite stores, small pickets, and let's tell ShopRite that we are coming for them. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. I thought someone would say something about the petition as well. There's a petition online. You can find it at amandlamobi.org. So just search petition, food prices, Amandla Mobi, ShopRite, you'll find the petition. So ShopRite, Amandla Mobi, Union Against Hunger, you'll find the petition. You can search it. So please look for that. Can I also just say two things briefly in response to questions? The link between gender-based violence and hunger and food prices. It has been shown that stunting due to poor nutrition in the first years of your life, it affects your physical, your intellectual, and your emotional development. People who have been stunted, it doesn't mean everyone who is stunted is violent, but there is statistically, people who are stunted because of poor nutrition at a young age have a higher propensity to violence later in life, sadly, because they were not, at that critical moment, their intellectual, emotional, physical development was hampered. So there's a direct link between violence in our country, which is extreme, and the number of people suffering from poor nutrition in the early years. For street traders, the only thing I want to add is, and informal vendors, they all want better infrastructure. They all want sanitation. They all want storage facilities. They all want safety and security on the streets. And these things are things that our municipalities can be providing. So don't criticize them for being unhygienic. They want better conditions to be more hygienic and look after the food as well. Those are the things I'm going to add. There was a hand here for a call. I'm going to take a couple of hands if anyone wants to make a short, strong call to action. And then we're going to close. Thank you for your patience.